The warning unheeded. The grand assembly hall of the Sarkonian Empire gleamed with bioluminescent light, casting iridescent reflections across the carapaces of the gathered High Council. Fleet Admiral Xalvex stood at the center, his exoskeleton polished to a mirror finish that caught and scattered the ambient glow. 6 powerful limbs held perfectly still in the formal posture of address as his compound eyes surveyed the assembled leadership. Esteemed members of the High Council, Xalvex began, his mandibles clicking in precise rhythm to accentuate his words. Our expansion probes have discovered something remarkable. A species occupying 17 systems along the spiral arm, positioned exactly where our empire needs to expand. Supreme Counselor Triska adjusted her neural interfaces, the delicate filaments shifting as she processed the information. These would be the humans, then. The species mentioned in the ancient codex. A wave of uneasy chittering swept through the assembly hall. Every Sarkonian knew of the warnings left by their ancestors. Cryptic, dire messages about a bipedal species called humans. Warnings that had been passed down for 12 generations. Xalvex's antennae twitched with barely concealed impatience. With respect, Supreme Counselor, our ancestors encountered these humans centuries ago, when our understanding of the universe was primitive. Their warnings were based on superstition, not science. The Codex is quite specific, Triska countered, bringing up a holographic display of ancient Sarkonian text. It states clearly, the humans must never be challenged, for they do not fight to win. They fight to ensure they never have to fight again. This warning was sealed with the highest authority mark. Xalvex moved forward, his massive form casting shadows across the council chamber. I have studied these humans extensively. They are fractious, divided. They lack our hive efficiency. Their technology is adequate but unrefined. Their ships rely on primitive shielding that our phase disruptors would render useless. He manipulated the holographic display, showing detailed schematics of human vessels intercepted from their own communications networks. Most critically, he continued, they have limited their expansion to those 17 systems, despite having the capability to claim more. This suggests caution, perhaps even timidity. They are ripe for conquest, and the resources of their worlds would fuel our expansion for millennia. Elder Counselor Vaz, oldest among them, rose slowly from his perch. His exoskeleton had faded to a pale blue with age, but his voice remained strong. I was merely a hatchling when the last interpreter of the ancient codex died, Vaz said, but I remember his final teaching. He said the warning about humans wasn't about their technology or their numbers, but about something more fundamental, something in their nature. Mysticism, Xalvex dismissed. We are a species of science now, not superstition. Emperor Zilith, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. His massive form dwarfed even Xalvex, and when he moved, everyone's attention followed. Perhaps, the Emperor rumbled, both perspectives have merit. Fleet Admiral, what precisely do you propose? Xalvex straightened to full height. A decisive campaign, Exalted One. Our 5th and 7th battle fleets are positioned within striking distance of the human territory. 20,000 warships can secure their outer colonies before they mobilize an effective defense. Once we control their resource worlds, their home system will have no choice but to capitulate. The Emperor's compound eyes reflected the star maps and battle projections. After a long moment of consideration, he nodded. The ancient codex has guided us well in many matters, but perhaps in this, our ancestors were mistaken, or perhaps circumstances have changed. Proceed with your campaign, Fleet Admiral. But, his voice dropped to a menacing whisper, be prepared to withdraw immediately should these humans prove more formidable than anticipated. Xalvex's mandibles clicked in acknowledgement. It will be as you command, Exalted One. 3 cycles later, the greatest armada in Sarkonian history emerged from fold space at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, humanity's furthest colony. 20,000 warships arranged in perfect geometric formation, each carrying enough firepower to reduce a planet's surface to molten slag. On the bridge of the dreadnought Inevitable Victory, Solvex surveyed the human colony through magnification screens. It was a modest settlement, barely 8 million inhabitants according to their intercepted census data. Atmospheric domes protected fragile organic structures on a world that humans had only partially terraformed. No significant defensive installations detected, reported Sensor Officer Kelvin. Minimal orbital presence, just a small station and a few dozen maintenance vessels. As expected, Solvex said, open a broadcast channel across all frequencies they use. Let us offer them the opportunity to surrender before we demonstrate our power. The communications array aligned, and Solvex delivered his message with practiced precision. Attention, human colony. I am Fleet Admiral Solvex of the Sarkonian Empire. Your territory is now claimed for our expansion. Surrender your world and evacuate your core systems within one planetary rotation. Resistance will result in planetary bombardment. The response came after only 30 seconds. A single human appeared on the view screen. Female, according to their intelligence, with dark skin and close-cropped hair, wearing a simple gray uniform with minimal insignia. This is Colony Administrator Diane Wells, she said, her face betraying no fear. We were not aware of any territorial claims by the Sarkonian Empire. I must consult with Earth Central Command before responding to your request. Solvex chittered with amusement to his bridge officers. They seek to delay. Typical prey behavior. Admiral, interrupted Tactical Officer Zilvan, we're detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. Specify, Solvex demanded. They appear to be emerging from fold space, Zilvan said, mandibles twitching with confusion. Hundreds of signatures. No, thousands. The tactical display updated in real time, showing spatial distortions erupting throughout the system. From each distortion emerged a vessel of unmistakably human design, but unlike the primitive ships they had studied. These vessels were sleek, predatory, and bristling with weapon systems the Sarkonians had never encountered. Impossible, Solvex whispered as the count continued to climb. 5,000 ships, then 10,000, then more. The colony administrator's face reappeared on the view screen, her expression unchanged. Fleet Admiral Solvex, Earth Central Command has authorized me to inform you that your presence has been deemed hostile. The Proxima Defense Fleet is now in position. The tactical display became a sea of red markers as human vessels continued to appear, not just matching the Sarkonian Armada ship for ship, but exceeding it. They've surrounded us completely, Strategic Officer Trelvin reported, his voice tight with strain. And these energy readings, they're operating technology we've never seen before. A new transmission came through, originating from the largest human vessel that had positioned itself directly ahead of the Inevitable Victory. Sarkonian Fleet Admiral, this is Admiral Zhongwei of the Earth Defense Force. Your intrusion into human space with a military force constitutes an act of war. We have no desire for conflict, but we are prepared to defend ourselves. Solvex felt a cold sensation spread through his exoskeleton as he finally understood the true meaning of the ancient warning. The humans hadn't limited their expansion due to timidity. They hadn't showcased their true military capability because they had no need for shows of strength. The Codex, he whispered. We misunderstood. Your scans are revealing only a fraction of our defensive capabilities. Admiral Zhang continued. You have 1 hour to reverse course and return to Sarkonian space. After that, we will be forced to demonstrate why your ancestors warned you not to challenge us. Solvex looked at the tactical display one final time. The human vessels had arranged themselves in a formation that would allow no escape through fold space. Their weapon systems, now fully powered, generated energy readings that defied Sarkonian understanding. They had walked into a trap centuries in the making. With mandibles clicking in a pattern that signaled deep distress, Solvex gave the order he never imagined he would give. All vessels, prepare for immediate withdrawal. The price of arrogance. The inevitable victory shuddered as its fold space engines strained to power up. On the bridge, chaos reigned as Sarkonian officers attempted to coordinate the retreat of 20,000 warships while surrounded by a human armada that outnumbered them 2-1. Fold space engines at 60% capacity, reported engineering officer Vazril. The humans are broadcasting some kind of interference pattern. It's slowing our power buildup. Fleet Admiral Xalvex gripped the command podium with 4 of his limbs, his compound eyes fixed on the tactical display. The human vessels maintained their perfect encirclement, making no aggressive moves but allowing no openings. Time to full fold space capability, Xalvex demanded. 17 minutes at current rates, Vazril responded. But Admiral, the humans could have fired on us already. They're letting us power up. Xalvex's antennae twitched in agitation. They want us to report back. They want the Empire to know. The view screen activated without Sarkonian input, displaying Admiral Zhongwei's face again. The human's expression remained neutral, but there was something in his eyes that Xalvex could now recognize. Not bloodlust or triumph, but a profound weariness. Fleet Admiral, Zhang said, while we wait for your departure, I've been authorized to share something with you. Our historical archives contain records of an encounter between humans and Sarkonians approximately 300 of your cycles ago. Images appeared on secondary screens, ancient human vessels meeting even more ancient Sarkonian scouts. The date stamp confirmed it was during the early expansion era of the Empire. Your ancestors discovered our first extrasolar colony, Zhang continued. They attacked without warning or provocation. We were barely spacefaring then, with minimal defenses. The images shifted to show a devastated human settlement. Bodies lying in ruins. Xalvex felt his inner membranes contract with discomfort. We lost 30,000 colonists that day, Zhang said, his voice remaining steady. It was our first contact with another intelligent species, and it taught us a harsh lesson. When we finally developed the technology to track your scouts back to Sarkonian space, we faced a choice. Another image appeared, a massive human fleet positioned at the edge of what was then a much smaller Sarkonian territory. We could have obliterated your homeworld in retaliation. Many wanted to. Instead, our leaders made a different decision. They met with your ancestors and made an agreement. We would spare your species and allow you to develop on one condition. Xalvex's mandibles clicked in sudden understanding. The warning in our codex. Zhang nodded. Your ancestors promised to warn future generations never to challenge humanity again. We withdrew, established our defensive perimeter, and watched as your empire expanded in other directions. The revelation hit Xalvex like a physical blow. The ancient codex wasn't based on superstition or fear. It was a peace treaty, written in terms that would ensure compliance even if the specifics were eventually forgotten. Fold space engines at 90%, Vazril reported. Zhang's expression hardened slightly. You have broken a peace that has lasted 3 centuries. By all rights, we should eliminate the threat you pose. However, we maintain the same principle that guided our ancestors. We fight only when necessary, and only to the extent required. The tactical display updated, showing a corridor opening in the human blockade. A clear path back to Sarkonian space. You may leave, Zhang said simply. But understand this. The peaceful isolation you've observed from humanity was a choice, not a limitation. Should you return with hostile intent, there will be no further warnings. Fold space engines at full capacity, Vazril announced. Xalvex made the formal gesture of acknowledgement, a movement his species had performed for millennia when accepting terms from a superior force. We will withdraw, he said. And I give you my personal word that I will ensure the wisdom of the ancient codex is fully understood by the Emperor. Zhang nodded once. Safe journey, Fleet Admiral. The transmission ended, and the inevitable victory led the Sarkonian armada into fold space, leaving behind the human forces that had materialized from nowhere to defend their territory. 3 days later, Salvex stood once again in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Sarkonian Empire. His exoskeleton was unpolished, bearing the marks of exhaustion and strain. Before him sat the Emperor and the full High Council, silent as he completed his account of what had transpired. The humans allowed our complete withdrawal, Salvex concluded. They made no demands beyond our immediate departure. Not one Sarkonian life was lost. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Emperor Zilith spoke. You believe their account of our history, that our ancestors attacked them without provocation. I do, Exalted One, Salvex replied. Our own historical records from that period are incomplete, but what remains is consistent with their claims. More importantly, they had the capability to destroy our fleet and chose restraint instead. This aligns perfectly with the warning in the ancient codex. Elder Counselor Vaz's voice quavered as he recited from memory. They do not fight to win. They fight to ensure they never have to fight again. We misunderstood the nature of the warning, Salvex said. We interpreted the humans' limited expansion as weakness, when it was actually discipline. They had the power to annihilate our ancestors, but chose coexistence. They had the power to annihilate us 3 days ago, and again chose restraint. Supreme Counselor Triska leaned forward. What do you propose, Fleet Admiral? A new codex, Salvex said firmly. Not hidden in ancient warnings that future generations might misinterpret, but a clear directive. The humans are not to be challenged, not because of fear, but because they have earned our respect. They understand a principle that has eluded our empire. True strength lies not in conquest, but in the wisdom to avoid unnecessary conflict. The Emperor's compound eyes studied Salvex for a long moment. Then, with deliberate movements, he descended from his elevated position and approached the Fleet Admiral. You led our greatest armada to what could have been our greatest defeat, the Emperor said, his voice echoing in the chamber. Yet you returned without losing a single ship or warrior. You have learned what our ancestors learned centuries ago. He turned to address the assembled council. Let it be recorded. Humanity is designated a sovereign power equal to the Sarkonian Empire. We will establish diplomatic relations and formal boundaries. And let this truth be enshrined for all future generations. We do not challenge humanity, for in their restraint lies a power greater than all our weapons. 1 cycle later, a single Sarkonian diplomatic vessel approached Earth, carrying Fleet Admiral Salvex, now designated as the first ambassador to humanity. As his ship was escorted into orbit by human vessels that no longer concealed their true capabilities, he observed the blue-green world that had produced such a paradoxical species, technologically formidable yet dedicated to peace, capable of overwhelming force yet committed to restraint. On the view screen, Admiral John Wei awaited his arrival, now dressed in diplomatic attire rather than a military uniform. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador, Zhang said, with what Salvex now recognized as a smile, a human expression of goodwill. We look forward to beginning a new chapter in our shared history. As do we, Salvex replied, performing the formal gesture of respect between equals. My ancestors learned the wisdom of never challenging humanity. I am here to learn why humanity chose never to conquer. Zhang's smile deepened. That, Ambassador, is precisely the conversation we've been waiting 300 years to have.